This is Larry Hedrick for Mysteries of Superstition Mountain, where we bring the past into the present for our future viewers. Today we have another great Arizona story by Marshall Trimble.
In the gold rush period in Arizona, there were two separate times. One was the first big gold rush in the 1850s, that began in the 1850s, and the other was around 1900 when they were demonetizing silver, and gold became precious again, or became, you know, a new rush started. So I'll tell you a little bit. I'll tell you some of the early days. Those are the more colorful ones of the with the first strikes, because some of them were just amazing. Most of them were right around where Yavapai County is. In fact, almost all of them were. The only one that wasn't was the first one, and that was at 1858 at Gila City, on the Gila River, about 20 miles east of Yuma. Jake Snevely, who was a old Confederate officer and a Texas patriot, let's call him, and he was with a party of gold prospectors, and it seems so funny to think they would find placer gold there. But in 1858, there was a strike. I mean, a boom town came overnight. It was called Gila City, and they were out there. They were picking up $100 a day, panning out $100 a day in gold, and then blowing it that night, because we'll just go out tomorrow and pan out some more. And but when placer gold plays out, it plays out. It's easy to find. Nature has already mined it for you. Placer gold is it's broken away from the ore, and it's just out there being polished by the rushing waters, and it's just glistening there, waiting for some lucky guy to pick it up. And so then the next one was our old scout Pauline Weaver. It was on the Fiesta de la Paz, the Fiesta of Our Lady of Peace, January of 1862, and over in the Colorado River area, a place that would be called La Paz, and they were taking gold out of there, and some Mexicans were also taking gold. They were just, it was a big strike. They've been thinking about making La Paz the territorial capital when Arizona became a separate territory. It was that big a place. But again, as Senator Goldwater said, his grandfather was one of the merchants over there, one of the first settlers, and he says, my grandfather came out one morning and the Colorado River had moved. It was a steamboat landing there with no water now. So he said he just picked up the store and went out and found the river, and that's where Ehrenberg is today. He named the new town Ehrenberg in honor of a good friend of his who had just been killed by Indians recently, and Herman Ehrenberg. And so, so that was the big strike, the first big strike, and they were really picking it up, and it was big, but there was more to come. Now, when Gila City was going strong, another man comes in as one of the prospectors. His name was Jack Swilling. And old Jack, you know, he gets maligned, and I'm just trying to lionize him because everybody says bad things about him. He had gotten hit in the head and been shot, and he did a typical thing that people did. He took laudanum for the pain. This is very common, you know. You could just buy laudanum over the counter, and he. So the trouble is he mixed it with alcohol, and that's dynamite. And he did some violent things when he was, but otherwise he was a highly respected, one of the most respected citizens of Arizona in his time, unless he was drunk or high on, or both. Well, anyway, Swilling comes along, and Swilling organizes some militia, volunteer, because the Yavapai now were attacking these prospectors. You know, they'd been doing all their damage down in Mexico, but all of a sudden, hey, here's you know, new talent we can pluck, and so. So Swilling is on an expedition now, leading, and he comes along about where Avondale is today, up the Salt River. They're following actually it was the Gila. They're following the Gila River out because the Salt joins it right about Avondale. Anyway, they're coming up the Gila River, and there is a river coming out of the north, and No white man has ever gone into central Arizona, believe it or not, in 1860. No white man has ever ventured in there. And Swilling is not going to do it either, because the Yavapai are and the Tonto Apache both. That's their land, and there were white people up by the 35th parallel, you know, where Interstate 40 is today, going across to California. But all those central mountains were just void of white people. And so, so anyway, he remembers it. And these guys had an eye. They could dig like a gopher, and had an eye of an artist for looking for geological, you know, the self-taught geologists. And he said, that looks promising, but he's not going to dare venture up there. Well, fast forward to 1863. Meanwhile, the Civil War is going on. He was a Confederate officer during the Civil War by the Arizona Volunteers, Arizona Rangers, and he's a lieutenant when the Confederates invade Arizona and make it a Confederate territory. But when the he was mainly in there as a ranger to fight Indians and raiders on over at Silver City and wherever he had to be, and so he gets to New Mexico, and they've been driven out. The Confederates have been driven out of Arizona, and they're headed all the way back to Texas. And this is where Swilling says, I joined this to fight Indians, not to fight other white men. He said, this is not my fight. And he deserts. And so, and then he hooks up with Joseph Rutherford Walker, who is one of the greatest mountain men of them all and explorers. And he now has gold fever. He's been all over the West, every nook and cranny of the West, but he's never been in central Arizona. And to a mountain man, I ain't been there, so I gotta go there. It's just an attitude. They captured some Yanks at Pima Villages. He is escorting these Yanks back. There's William McCleave, Captain William McCleave, and Swilling and McCleave start visiting over the campfires at night, even though one's his prisoner and the other one's the captor, and and they become friends. And Swilling is talking about this gold, that he's sure there's gold up in the Hassayampa River, and so McCleave introduces him to General Carleton, and then General Carleton they introduce him to Joseph Walker, and Joe Walker has a party of gold seekers coming in, and they're wanting to go into Arizona, but they don't know anything about it. Swilling knows the whole area, has been there many times, just not up the Hassayampa. So so Swilling joins with the Walker party, and they come into Arizona. They probably cross over. They come into southern Arizona. They go to Tucson to buy supplies, and there are none. So they go up to the Pima villages, and there are plenty of supplies there. So they acquire some supplies. They cross the Gila, the Salt River, about where Tempe is today, and they head west, and they come to the Hassayampa River. And now Swilling has got some fighting men with him, and they're going to go up the river. Well, they meet the chief in Wauwatosa. I can't remember for sure what his name, but anyway, he informs them. He informs them that if you go up there, you'll die. And Walker, this big 6'4" giant of a man, could go bear hunting with a switch. And he says, if we go up there, you'll die. And the chief backed off. And so they went. That's how they bluffed their way up the river, up the Hassayampa. And they go up the Hassayampa, and they go all the way up to the headwaters of the river, and there they find in Big Bug and Lynx Creek and all those places, they find gold. I mean, it's a gold rush. Washington finds out about it, and next thing you know, Arizona's a territory. Well, Swilling goes back down. Swilling goes back down to Tucson for something, and as he's coming back, he stops at the Pima villages again, and there is a group of people there. Peoples was his name, A.H. Peoples, Peoples Valley, and he's leading a party, and his scout is, once again, Pauline Weaver. Weaver and Swilling and all these guys just show up at all these different places, and now they're back. Now they're together again, and so Swilling joins them because they say, "Hey, we're gonna go up to." They had found some promising along the Hacienda about where Wickenburg, just north of where Wickenburg is today, and so they go up there, and at one place, burros get lost. And they went looking for the burros, and right on top of a hill, they got up to a high hill there to see if they could get a view where those burros had wandered off to. And right on the ground, where it shouldn't be, is a whole field of nuggets. They called it the potato patch. They picked out $500,000 of gold, in placer gold, on about a half acre. It was, what, $12 an ounce, I think, $12, $16 an ounce. So anyway, the rush is on now to Weaver, Stanton, and Rich Hill, and also still Prescott, the Prescott area, and they were combing those mountains for gold and silver, and that was really the big. Oh, there's one more. Henry Wickenburg had come out with the party, earlier party, and Wickenburg is down. He finds lode gold, lode mining, which is, it's still in the ore, it just has to be processed. It has to be crushed and so forth, but the Vulture mine. So right in that little area there, that short area between Prescott, Lynx Creek and that area, and down at the foot of Yarnell Hill at Weaver and Stanton and Rich Hill, and then right down a little further along the Hacienda at Vulture City. We have the richest lode mine in Arizona, the single lode mine, gold, and the single placer strike, and Lynx Creek, the richest stream bed, placer gold stream bed. All of those are right along that area. It was just a gold belt. It's all taken up. I think there's one place in Lynx Creek, it was a few years ago anyway, where you could still pan, but everything else, somebody's got a claim on it.
Got a claim
yeah,
on it.
mm-hmm, yeah. So that was the 1860s was really the gold period in Arizona, and in the 70s they'll start hitting silver. Silver King was the huge gold silver strike. It was the largest single silver mine in Arizona, and then Tombstone in 1877. And by that time, by the time this all plays out, copper's in the electric age. We've got electric lights, electric wires, and so it was almost as if there was a pattern. Well, here's the gold, that'll get them here, and then here's the silver, that'll take a little bit more work to get. But where there's silver, there's also gold. We enter the age of copper. Well, there's another period then, and that was the one that there was the government was battling back and forth on demonetization of silver. 1873. If you collect silver dollars, you'll know from 1873 to 1878 you won't be able to buy any silver. They weren't making silver dollars then. The government started buying silver again. That's a plain talk. And that would last until 1893. And once again, the Sherman Anti-Silver Purchase Act. And this really crippled places like Arizona, Colorado, these big silver areas. And but it opens it up for gold again. And around the 1890s, we see the beginning of the people are starting to look for gold again. This would happen again during the Great Depression when everybody was out of work. They would pick up their pans and go back up to these streams around Wickenburg and start panning out for gold. When I tell stories about the superstition gold, no, geologically, in certain areas of the superstitions, such as Weaver's Needle, it's not geologically feasible, gold, but right at the front, you can't say there's no gold out there. They took millions out of there at the Mammoth and Bluebird mine in the 1890s, early 1900s, and then there was another big gold strike besides at Goldfield, the Superstition front of the West Range of the Superstition Mountains. It was at Oatman. And at Oatman and Gold Road, these were big strikes in the early 1900s. And Oatman was just a big boom town for gold. So we did have that. That was the gold period again, the gold promotion. I call it the gold promotion period.
Thank you for watching this episode of Mysteries of the Superstition Mountains.